Carolyn.
Hello.
How's it going?
It's going good. And how's it going for you?
Very good. I always play that music right at the beginning so that I can send a link out to everyone because it generates a link when we go live, and then I have like a tiny bit of time to send that new link to everyone. So
Well, I really liked it, and it was like really hard not to be dancing around in my chair like some sort of goofball. So
hi, Devader. It's good to see you again.
Hello there. How's everybody doing?
Good, good, good. You with your amazing earrings again.
yeah, I'm having a lot of envy on those.
Oh, they are so easy to make. They're actually featured in the Crochet Foundry's September magazine. And so you can get the pattern in there. It's so easy. It's just a granny square that I fold.
That's so cute. I love it.
Super easy. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So, Devader, I always just assume that everyone knows who Caroline is because she's the founder of Ancient Arts Yarns. She teaches knitting like all over, I think all over the world, but definitely all over North America. But yeah, I mean, you being into crochet, maybe not quite so much familiar with, the gurus of knitting, but yeah, Caroline, I am so grateful because Caroline is one of our presenting sponsors for Edmonton Fiber Frolic and teaching a boatload of workshops for us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
it's
awesome.
so, yeah. So yeah, I asked her to come on and do an interview for us this evening. And so yeah, I wanted to cover some ground on like the topics of the workshops but just in general, like who she is, why she's so fascinating, et cetera, et cetera. And you are so good at asking all the right questions. I was blessed.
Am I really?
So hard.
All righty. Are we ready to start now?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Right, let's do it. So, Carolyn, thank you again so much for joining us today. We are super excited to have you here. And as Holly said, I'm always just and finding out who folks are and why they're here and what they're going to be bringing to the frolic. So let us know who you are. For those of us like me, I am not very familiar with you. Let us know who you are, what you do, and then we'll get into the workshops and all that good stuff you're going to bring to the Fiber Frolic. Yeah.
That thing, the one with all the yarn. Yeah. Sure. My name is Caroline, and I'm a yarnaholic. I have been knitting for more years than I really want to admit to, and I've been crocheting for almost that many as well. So fibers and textiles have been part of my life basically since I was 4 years old and managed to bully my mother into it. So I've been a knitter for a very long time. Like I say, I've been crocheting for a very long time, and I had various careers that were not, shall we say, as fulfilling as they might have been. So I was an accountant, and then because I'd been an accountant for 20 years and wanted to get away from it, I went back to university, did some degrees, and then I became a statistician because that was so different. And finally, I said to myself, this is ridiculous, and I'm just going to go for it. And something that I had done as a hobby, which was dyeing fibers and teaching spinning and so on, I said, let's just turn this into my full-time job, and dove into the wide world of dyeing yarn as well as fiber. So that was, I'm not sure how many years ago, because we've actually forgotten what our anniversary was. So it might be 13 years ago, it might be 12 years ago. I really don't know anymore. It's just been a long time, and it's been a really wild and wonderful ride. So what I do now is I specialize in hand dyeing yarns that we have created for us. So one of the things that's really important to me is things like being environmentally sensitive and working with yarn that's been properly designed to be really good for the end purposes. And then last but not least, something that we'll be addressing in my keynote this coming weekend is getting into interesting wools and seeing what they can do for you instead of just this generic merino that everybody seems to want to use these days. So that's a little bit of what I do in terms of dyeing is, lots of fun things that way. And then I'm also a knitting designer, had to put a shawl in behind me because, one can't be without it. And I also love to teach. So I'm super excited to be teaching 4 classes at the Edmonton Fiber Frolic. And they're all brand new classes. So I'm like, yay, this is going to be so much fun. So hopefully that covered who I am.
That's awesome. So tell us the 4 classes that workshops you're going to be teaching.
Well, the 4 workshops relate to various things that I love to do myself. So we have one that is on shawl shapes. That's on Sunday. And I'm going to go in not necessarily chronological order for when they're being offered, but it'll all make sense once I get through it. So shawl shapes are something that fascinate me. I'm a mathematical person, it turns out. Never would have believed it, but I love the math. I love the understanding of the math behind things. But when you try to put math with knitting, people's brains shut down. So what I want to do is to teach people how shawls behave, how various different shapes are created, and how you can take them and turn them into something really nifty yourself. So you don't have to go and buy somebody else's pattern to just take some really beautiful yarn and make a shawl. So I want to teach people recipes for creating their own work there. Another class that ties into that is how to work with a technique called marling. So marling is where you take at least 2 different strands of yarn and you knit with them together. You can also crochet and marl at the same time too, but this class focuses on knitting, and what it is going to teach you is how to combine those yarns, what kinds of projects you can use them for, strategies for different types of marling and different effects, how to take marled yarns and build them into like really cool things like fades and things like that. So it's going to give you all sorts of different tips and techniques for creating unique garments, which you could put into your shawl shapes. Another class that we're going to do is based off of a design that I did called the tulip shawl. And this is important to me because the tulip shawl uses a number of techniques that can scare people. So one of them that it does do is use it marling, but it combines it with some really simple ferrule. And so this class is going to teach you things about putting colors together. It's going to teach you about mosaic knitting, which is actually a form of strand knitting. Although all of us instructors, we kind of hide that by calling it slip stitch knitting. But people, it is stranded color work. It's the gateway drug, as I like to call it. And so learn then some techniques and tips about doing stranded color work so that you can get going with it and be a beginner who is confident in learning these techniques. And if you want to be able to turn stranded color work into a mosaic style of knitting, I'm going to show you that as well. And then last but not least, that class is going to cover the dread subject of the steek. That thing where you take scissors and you deliberately cut your knitting, which is a terrifying and horrendous thing to do, you'd think. But in reality, knitting is really amenable to that. When you do vertical cuts in knitting, it doesn't want to fall apart. Knitting ravels down from the top. And if there's no way for it to ravel down from the top, it's not going to fall apart. So we're going to learn about steeks and how to stabilize them. And we're going to cut some yarn, people, and make it all exciting and approachable. And then there is one more class that's near and dear to my heart as a hand dyer, and that is on doing color pooling in socks. So something people might not know about me as a hand dyer is that I'm obsessed with color pooling. And a lot of my colorways have Easter eggs in them in terms of how they'll pool if you're knitting socks. So what we're going to do in that class is we're going to learn to identify yarns that will pool in socks and then learn how to make them do what we want them to do. So instead of them just forming random weird squiggles, we're going to learn how to control those squiggles and turn them into really fun stripes and interesting patterns like that. So that's the classes that I'm teaching. And then I'm doing a keynote speech, which is on heritage breeds of wool and the sheep that grow them, because it's a subject that's really important. And it's also fascinating at the same time. And oh my goodness, people, you have never heard the funky names that you will hear in that lecture. Like, what a great name for a sheep. Derby-stone Britshire. How can you resist that? So we'll be talking about why we have all those sheep and why they're important.
That is truly fascinating. If you've watched any of the episodes since we've been going live, I'm learning so much about sheep. So that is a really interesting class that you're going to be having. I think that all the folks who are going to be there, you know, they all love wool and they all love the sheep, and really need to learn about the products that we're using. So that is super duper cool. Now, can you talk a little bit more about pooling? I am a crocheter. I am not an advanced, super duper amazing crocheter, but I love to crochet. And I have never figured out the science or the math behind pooling. It just always, I'm like, but I'm confused. What am I doing wrong? Is my tension too loose? What am I doing wrong? Why can't I get this? Just a little teaser of what you're going to share in your workshop.
I totally sympathize with that. So pooling yarns will pool with crochet just like knitting, but what will happen is it's all based on the length of the piece of yarn in a particular color and what your stitch is actually like. So it'll be based on gauge and how many stitches in a row, or in crochet, like what kind of stitch you're using as to how the pools will form. So a yarn that has very short sections of color in it, like 2 inches or less, is not going to do a lot of pooling. So as a crocheter, if you're looking for a yarn that's going to create a pattern, you want to look for yarn that has longer sections of color in it so that those sections can then collect together. So a colorway that I dye, if you're curious and want to go later and look, that works really well for crochet is called Water Lily. And I've seen that one crocheted up, actually interweaved a scarf in it a number of years ago, and it was absolutely gorgeous. And it had sections of color that are about 8 inches long, which means that you've got enough of each to show up in your stitches. And it's exactly the same thing when you're knitting. It's a really complex subject in one way because it's so dependent on numbers of stitches, but it can be made really approachable as well. And like I say, socks are one of the best places to learn this. And you could crochet socks as well. That would do some fun pooling things. But they're a really great place to learn it because no matter what mishmash you get of color in a sock, let's face it, a sock is going to be pretty. But if we want to control things, stacking into stripes, and we want to make those stripes move back and forth or go vertical, that's where getting some advice is a really good thing. But anyway, yeah, one of the things when you're crocheting that will be significant will be the stitch itself and the length of the color that you're working with.
So we gotta, look out for the length of the changes in the yarn. That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Now, talk a little bit about your dyeing. I know that, you've been doing this for a long time. So talk a little bit about the fibers that you dye, what, calls to you, what says, change me now.
I love the way you put it. That's so true. That's exactly what it is. Like, I swear that yarn calls me. And I remember being a little tiny kid and going, I must have the yarn because it has my name on it. And my mother going, you're only 4 years old. You won't be able to do it. Going, oh, you watch me. And ever since I've sung a siren song. But for me, the yarns that sing the loudest are the ones that are actually made out of animal fibers. So protein fibers are what I dye. Anything that comes from an animal, or in the case of a bug, is something that you can dye with the kind of dyes that I use. So when we talk bugs, we're talking silk. And there are actually, I've never got my paws on it, but there are actually silks that come from spiders as well. And you'll find them woven into some pretty amazing textiles, but it takes an awful lot of spiders as compared to silk moths.
Right.
Anyway, what I dye with is I use something called a weak acid dye, and that binds to the fiber in the presence of something acidic. So it's a very low impact style of dyeing if you're making sure that your dye binds properly. And it's something that allows you to use all sorts of interesting fibers from all sorts of animals, including things like llamas and, vicunas and kiviot from a muskox and every sheep that you can possibly imagine. It opens up that whole world of connecting to other life on the planet. It's interesting to work with plant fibers, but one of the reasons why I avoid them is that it's a huge learning curve on both of them, and it takes a completely different setup. And I like to really focus on being as ecologically conservative as I can, and working with plant fibers sometimes uses a lot more water. So I've chosen to specialize in protein fibers and, work with this, like I say, certain types of environmental factors. And then, like I said, 2 heritage breeds, rare breeds, and then yarns that are constructed for purposes. That's like one of my obsessions. Back when I first got into hand spinning, oh my goodness, I think it's 28 years ago, I wanted to try and spin every breed of sheep fleece that you could get your paws on. It was a lot harder in those days to get that fiber, but I know that I bought at least 150 different breeds. And even in my house right now, I'd say there's probably about 100 different breeds of sheep fleece lurking around all over the place. And that taught me a lot. So when I moved into dyeing it, the knowledge just followed on itself. It made sense to do one after the other.
You know, I keep going back to this, but I just think it's so interesting, you know, those of you who dye your yarn, who are spinning your yarn, the research that you do about the fibers. I think it's so key and so interesting, but how do you start the whole research process? What do you do to, how do you learn? How do you learn? What were the tools that you use to educate yourself on the different fibers in the sheep?
Well, one of the things that you have to do is you have to get some good references and start learning about the different types of sheep. So for example, the sheep's wool will classify in different ways, and that will tell you a lot about a breed of sheep just based on its class. So what we're talking about there is like fine wool, long wool, medium wool, primitive style wool, down wool. Those all have particular characteristics, which then will affect any yarns made from them and any textiles made from those yarns. So you have to start with something, which is usually types of wool, and then you've got to go from there and learn about individual sheep breeds and the characteristics of their wool. Because there are, the last time I tried checking up on it, about 1,200 different breeds of sheep that have been recognized, and there's probably 2,000 or 3,000 more than that, because a lot of breeds are actually very localized and very small in terms of their numbers. So anyway, you start off, I would say, start off with types of wool, and then from there go and learn about sheep breeds that fall in those types.
Incredible. I mean, I could talk about and ask questions about that all day long. Like, I'm just into the sheep now. And unfortunately, I am allergic to wool. So I, haven't had the pleasure of really playing with it. I just don't even touch it. I stay away from it because I'm afraid. And I don't know if there, are potentially sheep that I'm not allergic to. Like there's, there might be some sheep out there that I could play with, but
that's entirely possible, because here's an interesting thing. I thought before I got into hand spinning that I was allergic to wool as well, because I would get a rash, but it turned out that I was actually allergic to the chemicals that some commercial yarns are made with. So here's a scary fact. Commercially made yarns can have all sorts of chemical coatings on them, and there is no law that makes them reveal what that stuff is. And I didn't find that out until I was a hand dyer and a hand spinner. So I can handle yarn until the cows come home if it's been hand dyed, because they cannot have coatings on it in that case, or if it's been hand spun, because again, absolutely nothing has happened to it in terms of those chemicals. So sometimes a wool allergy isn't actually to the sheep, it's to the way it's been processed. Now, and some people can be allergic. Sorry, go ahead.
I was saying, now that's interesting, because maybe I can play with wool.
It's worth going and trying some really well-washed yarn that's made by a hand spinner and see if it still bothers you, because that'll tell you whether it's a chemical sensitivity or not.
That's really, really interesting, because I'm sure that I'm not the only person who, grew up, oh yeah, you're allergic to wool, don't deal with the wool. And that could be, like you said, just the chemicals that have been used to process the wool. So I'm going to have to do me some little research there myself.
Absolutely. The other factor that could potentially affect something that irritates you is simply the micron count. How fine is that wool? And also, this is again something really interesting. Where do the sheep grow up? Because you might actually be allergic to pollen that's coming in with the yarn as opposed to the sheep. So again, speaking as somebody who found out that she could not buy wool from certain areas because it was coming with pollen that I was allergic to, it's funny how those factors will become a part of it. So you might not be able to use wool that came from Australia because of the vegetation there. Or it might be you can't use wool that came from North America, but that, experiment, try different yarns and see if you could touch them or not. That kind of thing can be really amazing.
That is just so interesting and something to really think about. Yesterday, when some of the ladies who were doing their trunk show, she kept putting the yarn to her face and saying how soft it was. I was like, well, I want experienced that with yarn, so this definitely encourages me to do a little bit more research. I'm loving it. Holly, what kind of questions do you have? I know you have some.
Oh man. Well, I mean, I could just sit at Caroline's feet and learn from her all day long.
Mhm.
So, um,
Sure.
I know, well, I mean, you guys talked about the workshops. That was a big thing that I wanted to make sure that folks knew about the workshops that Caroline is teaching. There was one, you know what? I wanted to ask about the marling workshop. That one is actually getting close to full. And I know like the word marls gets used in several ways when we talk about yarn. Like there's the marled yarn that's like two colors twisted together. But what you're talking about in this workshop is different from that. So can you sort of define that a little bit more?
That's a really good question because technically marl is a noun and describes a yarn that's made with two or more strands of different things. So it could be different colors. It could even be different fibers. And then knitters decided that they wanted to well, there's this commercial yarn and it's got these two different strands, but I would like different strands. Thank you very much. And also I have all of these scraps of yarn kicking around. What do I do them? So they turned it into a verb. And so now marling is the act of putting together multiple yarns to get you a different result. So you could put together lace weight yarns, you can put together fingering weight yarns, you can put together different weights of yarns, different colors of yarns, different fiber types. And the idea is that you're going to knit them together and give yourself a completely different fabric as a result. And it's a really nifty technique to help you with some of those really crazy hand-dyed skeins that you're not quite sure what you're going to do with them. So I know there's a few times where we've gone off the deep end and we've dyed something that's incredibly lurid and dear God, no, I can't be caught dead with that. But if you mix it in with another yarn, you can kind of calm it down and send it in a direction that's a little bit more usable. So it's a really great way to use up scraps of yarn. It's a great way to mix yarns together. It's also something that's really handy. Like, for example, I have a giant collection of fingering weight yarn and I'd really like to knit that DK sweater. Well, if you put two fingering weight yarns together, now you've got a DK. But what yarn should you put together and how will they look when you put those yarns together? So that's what we're talking there, is that we've taken the noun, turned it into a verb and made it into an action.
That's cool. That's
Yeah.
really
Yeah, that's very cool. Okay. So because I reposted to Instagram stories today from Wollerton Estates, their anemone sweater, and it is 3 strands of did you see that? Like the silk mohair. So that's marling.
Yeah, so when you mix yarns together, it's marling. One of the nifty things about doing that too is that you can create some really interesting fades of color. So like I say, you've got more control over color and you can smooth out gradations between them that way. Especially if you're using a number of finer yarns put together, you can do some really painterly things, which are just unbelievably gorgeous. Instead of, having to go and try and find one of the few dyers who is willing to do a gradient yarn.
Right. Okay. Cool. Okay. So our last 5 minutes before we switch gears, and I'm really excited for the gear switch. Can you tell us just briefly, how you got into teaching? I know you kind of gave us a really broad picture, but how did you get into teaching from being a dyer? What drives your passion for teaching in particular?
Well, I think it's partly because I've been teaching for probably about 35 years now in various different subjects. So, back when I changed careers to a statistician, I ended up teaching, get this, statistics at the U of C and Red Deer College 9 times. And the reason that I did it 9 times is because I have a passion for teaching people and then seeing the joy on their faces as they learn things. So I've taught all sorts of different subjects. I taught a lot of spinning classes, to the point where people actually thought I was located on the West Coast because I was out there so often teaching classes. So there's a long history of it. It actually predates the dyeing as a commercial business. I've been dyeing things since I was 8 years old, but I wasn't teaching that until probably about 10 years ago is when I did a bunch of dye classes.
How were you, I'm sorry, how in the world at 8 years old were you dyeing? What was the first thing that you dyed, if you remember?
It was fabrics. I remember it vividly because actually the first thing that I learned the technique on was batik dyeing. So that will take a piece of fabric and you will paint on a color, and then you will put wax over it in various places, do more layers of dye on top until you've created a picture. It's sort of the same idea as Ukrainian Easter eggs, but it's done on textiles. So that's where I first started off with dyeing. So it was fiber reactive dyes and lots and lots of wax, which my mother was less than impressed with because I kept using her good iron to remove it. So, yeah.
Kudos to all the parents of fiber artists, like seriously, right? And kudos now to our spouses or our partners and even our children. I have one piece of yarn that's like stuck to my doormat as you walk into my house, and I just won't get rid of it. It's a vibrant purple piece of yarn, and I just leave it there. Like, this is the home of a fiber artist. You know, you're gonna find yarn everywhere. So I love it. That's so cool. Okay, I'm sorry, Holly. I just jumped right on in.
No, I love it. I know. I was imagining the same. I don't know. I was imagining like, because I've watched YouTube videos of this lady. She's like, I don't know. This is a tangent, I guess. This lady, she's like a total free spirit. She does batik dyeing like on her back porch. And she looks kind of like this total like hippie, you know, on her back porch. And I, for some reason, my mind just goes straight there, like Caroline being this little girl, like a little hippie child.
Given the era, I probably was being taught by a hippie. Kind of dating myself here, I would have learned in the early 70s. So yeah, I'm pretty sure there were some hippies involved in that. It's funny because I still remember the subject too, and I can picture it clear as day. And I was a little bit unhappy with some of my color choices because they didn't teach you color theory. They're just like, fly, be free. But it was a scene of flowers in a field. So.
Wow. That's so fun though. I mean, clearly it's brought you to this place now where you are so creative and you do so much to inspire creativity and like everyone that you come in contact with. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's the one. Is if you don't move fast enough, I'll pin you down and start teaching you something, whether you like it or not.
That's funny.
Well, okay. So the next part of like part 2 of this is your studio tour. And oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I wish I could be there in person for this part because this is a brand new space. I've seen pictures, but they were like the unfinished space. So how are we going to do this part?
Well, I am sad to say that the blizzard that now lasted for 2 days has stalled out some of the stuff that was supposed to be here. So I'm a sad panda because there was like supposed to be furniture deliveries and a bunch more yarn and, you know, all the stuff was going to be here. And I'm like looking out at an echoing studio here, but I can at least walk us around and show it to you because one of the fun things that we almost never see is what does this look like in a place like this? You know, how does it work and so on in terms of space and layout? The one cool thing about things like Reels and TikTok is that more dyers are now showing their process. Something weird is when I started, nobody showed the process. You wouldn't even get a still photo. You'd never ever see anything. So I'm really excited to be able to share the studio because I know a lot of people want to know where the yarn comes from and how it looks. So I am actually sitting in the new studio right now. I am all excited because there's a whole corner set up here. And we have a tiny fireplace, and then we've got these beautiful velvet chairs, and this is the area where people are going to come in. And we're going to have classes here, and then it's also going to give people a chance to come and just hang out and do some knitting. So this is the corner of the studio that will be the knitting nook. So now what I can do is I can rise from my glorious velvet chair, and I'm going to walk us around, hopefully not making anybody too nauseated with the camera movement, and show you some more of what we have done here and the size of it and so on, because I'm pretty excited. Okay, so rising to the feet, allow me to just collapse this pole. La la la. I'm sure you guys are just going to stick out like that and be annoying. And now we can flip the camera. So this is the front part of our studio here, and this is where we're going to have a lot of our classes and our retail space. Right now, what you're seeing is I am so proud of it, new kitchen where, we'll be able to host people, give them beautiful beverages, coffees and teas, and then we have that fantastic chalkboard, which actually still has the previous tenant stuff on it, but that's where we're going to be able to put some interesting stuff up, like class schedules and things like that. Got to admit that some of those beers sound super fascinating, and I'll let you guys see them a little bit better. And I have left them specifically because I think we need to turn some of those into colorways. Wouldn't that be amazing? Like a colorway. They have a beer on this wall here that calls itself Cranberry Orange Imperial Stout. Does that not need to be a yarn? Yeah. So the front area has amazing lighting and beautiful glass windows so that when people come in here for classes, which, oh my God, I'm so excited to do, there's going to be lots and lots of really good light. And all of these lights hanging above are daylight lights. And the color on the walls has been chosen because in combination with the daylight lights, this gives you yarn that looks accurate. So pretty excited about that too. So this is just a tour around the front part of the studio, as I say. You can see where I was sitting, and we have all of one whole chair set up because they just arrived, but how great is it going to be able to sit and knit by a little fireplace? And yes, the fireplace produces heat. Yay! Beautiful. So where the magic will happen in terms of the dyeing is the back half of this building. So this here is a firewall and it's got big, huge doors, but we plan to leave them open as much as we can so that when people come in and visit us, they'll be able to actually see some of the process. So let's head back here. Trying not to juggle this too much. First room here is the one that the staff are jokingly calling the turquoise room of doom. This is going to get repainted and you can see some stuff that's been changed on the walls. Shorten my pole up a little bit here. This is where we're going to be washing yarn, because one of the processes of dyeing is that you put a lot of acid into your yarn. So as a dyer, what you want to do is you want to remove that acid, neutralize that yarn, and then the yarn doesn't end up getting worn, shall we say. So if a dyer doesn't wash their yarn and it smells really strongly of acid, it's a good idea if you just give a little bit of a rinse and remove that, because over time that can actually cause your yarn to degrade. So the washing room is going to be super important, and there's going to be a lot more stuff in here once we get those walls repainted from dubious green or turquoise. You'll notice that they painted the ceiling, the previous tenant, this color as well, and we have no idea why, but we're a little bit concerned as to why they thought a room painted turquoise was a good idea. Deeply frightening. The neat thing about this space was it was a former brewery. So this is where they brewed beer, and this was actually their cooler where they stored beer, and then they did certain types of admin stuff. I feel really sad for the previous tenants, but I've heard they've landed on their feet, so that's great. And we've inherited a really wonderful setup. We've added water all over the place, and I'm just fascinated by how there's water pipes now running everywhere, because the dyers are going to be super excited by this area back here, which is where the dyeing will happen, because we will all have our own sources of water. Dyeing can be done in lots of different ways. So you can do it with kettles, or you can put it into steam cabinets, and you can see some of the new steam cabinets sitting there ready to be unboxed. Obviously, we have more of those that will be moving over from the current studio. And like I say, there's a number of things that have not been delivered yet. So one of the things that my lovely and talented partner back there is doing is he's literally setting up tables and carts right now so that we can put them in amongst the cabinets. So all of our dyers will have their own dye station to work at, and that will mean that they can each specialize in whatever they want to that day, and not be cheap by gel the way we are right now. Right now, the dyers are working in an area that's about 200 square feet. And this area back here for the dyers is going to be about 1,000 square feet. So a huge change there. We are all super excited about our giant steel table. And the advantage to this is that we are going to be able to do a lot of types of dyeing that require you to paint. I hope that noise isn't too loud. That's the furnace kicked on back here. Good. So yeah, giant steel tables that allows you to put out pans and put your speckles on your pans. and it allows you to hand paint yarn because a lot of my secret pooling colors require hand painting. This lovely area here that's empty right now is going to be filled with yarn, but what it does have in the top corner is my precious, my hot water on demand. As a dyer who needs a lot of hot water, OMG, I can have as much as I want and never run out. I would also like to point out that one of my staff felt that we needed to delineate the places in the studio and what are happening there, so she made signs for us. So over here, as we swing wildly around, you can see some giant piles of boxes. And this is some of our yarn that hasn't been dyed. And I've got to take you over and show you this because a lot of people won't have any idea of how yarn gets to a dyer or what it looks like. So let's have a look at this. And you can see it comes in these great big huge boxes. Yarn will come to us from all over the world. And what we do is we have it made specially based on the fibers that we want to use. In my case, it's a lot of heritage breed wools. And then the mill itself that creates the yarn is chosen based on they have the right machinery and they have the right skill in order to make the yarn that you want. I love this one. This is a mill in Italy, and they are so fancy pants that they actually print their boxes. And this box holds 100% pure silk DK yarn that we'll be releasing this December again. So yummy. And I will give you a little bit of a sneak peek in terms of what's coming up. Can't show it to you because it's not here, but we've got a design done in this by Mother of Pearl on Instagram, Lauren, and she's designed us a beautiful hood out of this fabulous silk. But I just love the names on these and the fact that, you know, it's much more visceral in terms of seeing where it comes from. It's not just a finished product. It comes in the boxes, and then from there it goes into the hands of the dyer. So I'm going to walk around this way. These are pallets that we'll be stacking boxes on. More giant steel tables, stepping over the giant steel table. Here we have yet more yarn. And you can see in this stack that sometimes they're not necessarily as careful as they could be. This yarn comes from Italy in particular, and it obviously has had a close and personal encounter with some sort of forklift. But what happens is the yarn comes in the big boxes, and then as the dyer, you want to remove the yarn, and look, there's a gap here, and we can see some yarn that's been pre-dyed. So the yarn comes out of the boxes, and it's not going to look like it does when it's finished. This particular one is something that's really cool, where we have actually got some colors that we have designed. So I hand dyed them. I sent them to Italy, and they've matched the color, and they've dip dyed them for me so that we can have some really, really saturated colors. And that's on our new hair leg yarn, which is going to be up on our website as soon as I finish getting it photographed. But it comes out of these boxes, swinging madly around like the speed of light. And the skeins are bundled up into groups. From there, what's going to happen is that the dyer is going to either pre-soak them or pop them directly into dye, and that's going to cause the yarn to bloom, and it's going to take on its final colors in that process. So you can see we have a whole lot of boxes here. What have we got in here? She rips open boxes. Oh, dyed yarn. Look at that. Finished yarn. Yay! Some of our hair, like we are actually bringing a lot of that to Edmonton Fiber Frolic. We've been dyeing up a whole bunch more of it. So I'm really excited for you guys to be able to see it because it's only its second time out in public. So very cool there. Along this whole wall here, which is about 45 feet long, is our production and finishing area, as we call it. So we have the sheeping station. In this whole area back here is where we're going to be packing up your orders. We have another sheeping station at the front too, because when the front is set up properly with all of its grid wall, it's going to have about 8,000 skeins of yarn. And then we have yarn twisting stations, and this is where we're going to finish the skeins, and we are going to quality control them. These shelves, by the way, are all going to end up in the front. And then there are shelves on the floor not assembled because we're going to have a huge amount of storage where the yarn is piled right now. So actually we're going to have a whole lot of tables in here and a whole lot of stations where people can work. And I'm super excited for them too, because the light in here is fantastic. They're big, huge daylight bulbs, no flickering, and the colors look really true under this light. So this is really fun. So the yarn goes into the dyer's hands. The dyers will dye it with a number of different methods. They might speckle it. We might put it into kettles and kettle dye it, which gives you those really beautiful variegated colors. We could put it into the cabinets and do something that's solid. But once it comes out of that, it goes into the washing room. From the washing room, it's going to have the water spun out, and then there's a big wall here, which has a bunch of weird junk in front of it right now, but there's going to be tons and tons of drying racks here. Now, if you've looked at my social media in the past, you'll see that we actually lay our yarn flat to dry, and dyers will have all sorts of different methods for doing that, but I like to lay it flat because when you do that, you're not stretching the yarn out, and it means that the yarn is going to give you a more accurate gauge when you go and knit it. So even if you twist it into a skein, it had a chance to lie there and just fluff up and be its closest to original sheepy self as it can. So we're going to have a ton of racks here where there will be all sorts of drying. And if I didn't show you guys this little sign here, I would be in trouble. Wendy had a lot of fun with these. So there'll be big racks. And then what dyers do in order to speed up the drying is we have these big, huge industrial fans. So the yarn gets put on the racks, the fans run overnight, and then it goes to the production staff and they do their quality control checks. So they will take the skeins and they will look for knots. They'll look for flaws in the yarn. They will look for like dye errors, skein time marks, things like that. Maybe a batch of dye might have come out not quite the way that it should. So they'll quality control it and then they'll twist the skeins into their final form and they'll label them. And then from there, those skeins will go up and be ready to be sold in whatever form and become exciting knit items. So yeah, huge, huge area. And it's all laid out so that there's a workflow that goes through from the area where we have the dyers all the way to the cabinets there and then into the washing room and so on. And then for me, I'm super excited because I now have a little tiny media office where we're going to be able to offer our online classes in an area with really good light and no disturbances like, you know, the sounds of wrenches in the background and so on. So do you have any questions about it?
I was looking in the comments really quick. I don't see any. Sydney, do you? I'm not seeing any in the comments, hey?
Well,
But
I
the comments
really
are-
that, you know,
Oh,
everyone is going to get a chance to come and visit us because we're super excited about this. And I think one of the best parts of it will be that we can be open to the public because previously we're in an area of the city where it's zoned and we're not allowed to. I did see a comment pop up where somebody asked where it is. So it's on Manitou Road. And we will post the address all over everywhere as soon as the city has inspected it. And that's supposed to happen on Monday. And then, you know, we should be soft open within, I'd say, about 10 days of Monday. We just have to start hauling the rest of everything over here and moving all of those shelves. And oh my goodness, I didn't show you the giant pile of cardboard. This is hilarious. It's heaving right now. I think that my dear spouse might be buried in there, but I'll do more studio tours too as we have everything set up, because I know that, like I say, it's really nice to actually understand the process of how your yarn gets to where it is and what happens to it along the way. So this is going to give me a chance to do a lot more of these walkarounds and show you things.
it is. Yeah, okay.
Sorry, I was just going to say I am thoroughly impressed. This is a beautiful, beautiful space, and I'm so excited for you. You know, this seems like a dream come true. So I'm really excited for you, and I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. You all who live nearby, please make sure that when it's open, you just flood those doors and get in there and see all the magic. I love it.
Well, one of the big things too about this space is that I think it's really important to keep on, you know, giving back to community and building community. And so this is going to give us a place where we can really do that. So one of the things I really want to do is invite all sorts of instructors to come in and teach classes. And then the other thing that I want to do is, you know, regularly have pop-ups with other vendors. So, you know, people who make beautiful bags, people who do stitch markers, people who do self-striping yarn, which I do not do. I want to give them a place where they can come and have those opportunities to share with us and with the people in Calgary, because there's not a lot of options sometimes for, you know, places to go and hang out. We've had a few yarn stores close down, not because of any sort of financial issues, but retirement. So I think that it's important that we build something that people can find a new home for. I did see a question, but it's gone by and I can't see it anymore. Do you know what it was?
How many employees work in the dyeing process?
Ah, that's a good question. So right now we have 10 employees, and in the actual dyeing, we're going to have 4 dyers when we move in here. And then the production staff, we have 1, 2, 3, and then we have one person who mostly focuses on shipping, but who might help out with the skein finishing. Then we have a customer service person who is our wonderful and talented Wendy. We have my dearly beloved who works behind the scenes on, if it's heavy, he'll lift it for you. And he also handles a lot of things like billing and bullying the mills into sending the yarn faster, get it on an airplane, dudes, that kind of thing. So I think we actually 11 people. And then we also have a couple of people who work on contracts. So I'm really lucky to have Jessie McKittrick, for example, who will be teaching a sleeve class, working for us as our design coordinator, because she knows more about design building than I think most of us will ever learn. So she does a really great job of quality control on patterns. And then she's also good at herding cats, which when it comes to me, I kind of need.
Yes. I have loved interacting with your squad of people. Like,
it's a lot of fun, you know, and it's really great because everybody's gelled so well together as a team, and, you know, they do things together, and, you know, we go out sometimes and we do a lot of like sort of, I guess in the business, you'd call it a team building exercise. But like, for example, we went out to the custom woolen mill this summer so that they could see the process of how the yarn itself is made and really get a good understanding of that, you know, stuff like that. I really love the people I work with, and, you know, they're so fantastic and they're so talented. So I am very lucky.
I think Susanna might be looking for an opportunity to join the team. She says, "Do you have an accountant?"
So you might want to talk to us about that. We do have an accounting firm, but you never know. It's, you know, something that we might need to, you know, just kind of rethink. I think that they kind of get tormented by us because as an ex-accountant who was a corporate controller for many years, and my dearly beloved who is a chartered accountant and, you know, CFO and controller for many years, it's like the old saw, you don't do your own checkbook. Well, it's the same thing. So, you know, we're terrible about that. And I could not believe it when one day he presented me with receipts in a shoebox.
Susanna's like, never mind. No, she didn't say that.
I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, this is some sort of stereotype joke that, you know, people will come and present an accountant with receipts in a shoebox, and lo and behold, he did.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, I mean, this is like, we're artists now, right? This is what we do.
Exactly. And, you know, you got to keep the sense of humor about it, I guess.
Oh man. Well, because you're going to be open just before Christmas then. Are you going to throw like a
Yeah. We're debating on what we're going to do in terms of what the dates will be for a grand opening, but we'll be, you know, soft open before then so that people can come by and, you know, visit and hang out, and we can kind of give it a test run. And then for the grand opening, actually, we've got a really cute idea. So we're going to be offering donuts, a dozen donuts, possibly even a baker's set of donuts. And what that is I don't know if everybody's familiar with it, but last year, as one of our Christmas colors, we did Office Donut Party. Well, people loved Office Donut Party, and it's a colorway that pools so that when you knit it into socks or mitts or what have you, it will give you stripes. So we're going to do a dozen donut colors because you got to have donuts to celebrate an opening, and each one will pool in a different way. So we're really looking forward to that. And everybody is like, oh my God, we're going to have to buy so many donuts when we actually get to the design of this next week, because it's going to make us crazy. So we've got one done already, and it's a chocolate donut with Christmas colored sprinkles. Yum, yum, yum.
Yeah, so fun.
Totally. And then the other thing, of course, is that you can't have donuts without donut holes. So we are going to offer boxes of donut holes, which will be mini skeins.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So ridiculously fun.
So if anybody takes the color pooling and socks class, you're definitely going to want some donuts.
Mhm. There you go. Yeah, you guys. Color pooling and socks gets it. So are you going to have them at the Frolic then?
No, because those are for the opening. So, we're
Okay.
not taking them to the Frolic. We might bring them to the one in May, but they're going to go until December. Because I would love to open in November here, but realistically speaking, it's going to be some chaos and there's a lot of things to set up.
Yeah.
Super frustrating to have all the trucks delayed right now, but it's the way it is.
Yeah. Well, and that makes sense. Learn how to do the work in the workshop and then road trip down.
Totally. And it's going to be just so cool because, for 12 years, I've not been able to put my address on the website because my business license actually forbids me from doing so. So it's going to be great because, you'll be able to look us up and actually find us.
Yeah, I'm so excited. It's going to be so good. Okay. All I can see is, old control line pilot. This is brilliant. Yeah, it is brilliant.
It's going to be a lot of fun. And, it's going to be a change. And I'm really excited about that change. Like one of the things too is that, for social media, one wants to show off the process. People want to see reels with all of this sort of thing. People want you on TikTok and showing off some really cool stuff, but it's so noisy and so cramped where we are right now that it's almost impossible for me to do that. So I'll be able to do a lot more of that as well. So I'm really excited about that. And you, Holly, have inspired me on this. It's like, oh my God, the old gray mare has to learn some new stuff.
Oh, come on. It's not that new. Yeah, you just put
It is
stuff
to
together.
me. Oh man, I'm laughing so much. I'm making this whole thing shake.
No, it's yeah. I'm really, really excited to see everybody. Like, I can't believe it's already the 8th. Like, it's Tuesday. Like, I'm gonna see you on Friday.
Right?
It's not. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm totally excited. It's going to be the next 2 days, frantically putting yarn in boxes so that we can take it up there. And when you do that, it's just like, you get more and more and more excited. It's kind of like Christmas Eve almost. That's the way I feel about these retail events, because it's been so long since we've been able to see anybody. And so they're just so rewarding. The last 2 Frolics, I mean, my God, they were just so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And we were so, like, especially in May, we were so like crammed in, it was, I thought of it, it was like being in the LRT station at the University of Alberta. Everyone was just like nose to nose. And we're gonna have so much more space now. We'll see how crammed in we get, but I don't think we'll get that crammed in. So not yet.
Well, that's the nice thing about this space is it's going to be really easy to get from booth to booth. There's going to be more room within the booths. There's going to be places to sit down and rest, which, as somebody who has, shall we say, not got any younger with time, it's, becoming something that is more appealing. You're going to have the wonderful big social area there. You've got the stage, and it's just going to make for an even better experience. So yeah, both as a vendor and as I know darn well I'm going to do a lot of it shopper. I'm really, really excited for this.
Yeah. Okay. Mountain Mom Design says, so nice to see Carolyn in her new space this evening. I hope the workshop goes super well. My daughter's getting married on Sunday, so I won't be joining you. This is from Deborah Swift in Arizona. You have fans from everywhere.
That's so cool, Deborah. Thank you so much. And I do hope that you're going to be able to come up to Alberta at some point. But one of the things too is that we'll be doing a lot more of is virtual events. So that's one of the things, Holly, I thought was so cool, because this is really innovative. Having a virtual event before the in-person event means that people can participate from further away. So yeah, these hybrid events, I think they are the way of the future. Something I'm excited about in here too, because I've totally got plans.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I totally think they are. I think if there is a silver lining to pandemic, which I don't know if it's even okay to speak about silver linings to the pandemic because it's been so bad in so many ways, but it's that so many of us have gotten adept at being able to be online and connect online so that we can do things like this. And it's like, no big deal. There's not like, oh, why would you go online and do this? It's just like, yeah, this is what we do.
Is it made all of us innovate? I just want to drop back to the previous comment there too and say, congratulations.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
can't miss that. So anyway, very good reason not to be there. Super excited for you. That is just like the best. Anyway, yeah. Now zipping back ahead, I agree. Like one of the things that I found both teaching and taking classes during the pandemic was that it was a whole new way to do that. And I got to admit that I like it a lot on both sides, because for one thing, you can see what the instructor is doing even better than you can in person a lot of times. And as an instructor, I like being able to record so that people can go back and review it as many times as they need to. And I like to be able to zoom in on things like, you know, hey, look at what this little weird strand of yarn is doing on this needle tip. Because, you know, again, as somebody who is wearing progressive glasses, sometimes they'll show you in person and you're like, I don't know what you're doing there. I cannot see it. So this is where I think that there's been some good come out of it, you know. The chances there to, you know, just take it further and do more with it.
Yeah. So, and of course, like Davida and I have talked about, you know, I wouldn't have been able to like bring Davida up this time, but it's so awesome to be able to have Davida here as our co-host with her brilliance.
Yeah, she's fantastic. Love you. And as you say, you know, it's the perfect way to be able to do more things with more wonderful people. So hybrid classes, Holly, I'm just putting that bug in your ear.
I know. I got your email about that. We got to make that happen.
Totally. I'm doing the research for you so that I can make it easy. But I was actually at how many people asked if the Edmonton Fiber Frolic was going to be doing hybrid classes. So there you go. There is a demand.
Okay.
For those who aren't sure what I'm talking about, by the way, what a hybrid class is that there is a component where it's taught in person, but the class is also streamed so that people can participate from distance as well. So it's a really neat and innovative thing. And, you know, I'm talking to all the Zoom people and events and stuff like that to, you know, get the technology all sorted out and then, you know, pass it along to Holly.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, Davida, we got like 1 minute left with Carolyn. Any last words?
I mean, like I said, I'm looking forward to see what you do with the names coming from the beer board that's up there. I thought that first one you said sound like it would be a yummy color. So I can't wait to see what you do with those. Kudos.
They also have one called Black Cherry Lime Seltzer, and then there's a Blueberry Pancake Imperial Stout.
Hello, those are definitely young colors. Absolutely. So
Totally.
I cannot wait to see what your team does with that. I'm so excited for you. And I'm excited for those who are going to be at the workshops and getting all this knowledge firsthand from this amazing woman. So good stuff.
Well, thank you so much. I can't wait. And I will confess that, you know, being a hand dyer, that means there's no doubt at all that I'm going to be bringing a bunch of yarn for my students to play with, because you may bring some from home, like the class said, but you got to have more. So it's going to be a blast.
Have fun. Have so much fun, y'all.
Thank you so much, Caroline.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I really enjoyed hanging out and spending an hour with the two of you and the wonderful people who have joined. I cannot tell you what it meant to have you guys humor me and let me walk around and show you this, because it's like, oh, look, an empty room with a barrel at one end. But to me, it's like so much promise and potential.
Yes, for sure.
Although I don't get to keep the barrel because my mother-in-law said she wants it. And I'm like, can't say no. It's actually really cool. It's a whiskey barrel.
Oh, well, that's valuable.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. Okay, well, thank you so much. We will see you. Well, we'll see you again for your trunk show.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, okay. And now we have another amazing dyer vendor trunk show. This is going to be so much fun as well. Devita, I think you're really going to love the colors that you see in this next half hour. This is going to be so
No,
much
I
fun
love
too.
color.
I know. So Kim from Gingersnap is here to do a trunk show. And I'm just gonna, I don't know if we even need to ask any questions, because with the trunk shows, there's often like, just show us everything. So Kim, go ahead, take it away.
Hello, everybody. So Colin is going to pop in. He's just getting Abigail dressed to take the dog for a walk. And if you guys know what our weather's like here, you know that everybody's got to be completely bundled up right now. And she's so gung-ho, she just wants to build snowmans in everybody's front yards. So we've really been enjoying the virtual festival this week. It's been so informative and knowledgeable and fun. So many great makers and so much great information, stuff that we don't know as dyers, and to follow Caroline. Yeah, wow. Okay, so I'll tell you a little bit about Gingersnap. From a young age, both myself and Colin have been interested in crafts and working with our hands. Gingersnap turned 6 this past year, but I have been selling my handmade goods and crafts for about 30 plus years. I have been dyeing for about 10 years. I actually used to go once a month up to St. Albert with a group of girls, and we would go to Allie's house. She used to be Kaleidoscope Dye Works, and she was a longtime dyer in Canada, and she actually taught several of Alberta's dyers now how to dye. And we would just have like a girls' day, have lunch. Allie would teach us all these different techniques, and that's how it came about. So that happened about 10 to 12 years ago. And then I was just dyeing for myself and dyeing for fun. And then some of my dyer friends here in Calgary said, you need to start selling this. So I went to my first event, and it was wonderful. And that's how that came about. I've always sewed right from a young age, so that I love making the bags and stuff. I do branch out into other areas. I make my grandkids clothing and that kind of stuff. And I do a lot of custom work for other makers that don't sew. Colin joined the team after about 30 years of being a certified arborist and owning his own landscaping business. Unfortunately, decades of physical work took a toll on his body, and his doctor gave him 2 options. Either you hire other arborists or find something else to do. So he was helping out a little bit, and he enjoyed dyeing here and there. Well, he decided that he wanted to do more of the dyeing. So he took some dyeing classes from some of the best dyers, virtual and in person. And that's how he has come about to be the main dyer of Gingersnap. Colin dyes about 80 to 85% of the colorways now. There's some that he won't touch. And then it's about a 50-50 split for developing the colorways. Sometimes I give him an idea and it's different in my head than what he sees. And for example, our buffalo plaid colorway. This is not what I had suggested and what I was looking for. Sorry, our light's not the greatest in this room. But this is what he came up with, and we were away for a weekend, so I decided to knit it up into socks, and I posted like a little video in front of a fireplace, and it just went wild. This is one of the colorways that actually helped us get through COVID. And we can't thank our customers enough for the love you have for our Buffalo Plaid series. Okay, so a little bit more. We are known for our fandom and our hip colorways, lots of brights, along with our pixel, which is like a slow gradient and very pixelated. That's the name that we gave it. Other dyers have different names for it and different techniques on how to do it. We also are well known for our black light reactive colorways. Those are Colin's favorite to dye, and he is always running up and down the stairs to check to see what it looks like under a black light. His man cave downstairs has black lights everywhere. Color is our passion. Our whole house is very colorful. Lots of our followers know that we have a great love for our grandkids, and we try to see them as much as we can. And we have been teaching them how to dye from a young age. I believe Jude's first dye session was about 3 years old, which ended up to be a great disaster with dye on the ceiling and all over the walls. But it was fun and it was well worth it. We use the dyeing sessions with our grandkids as teaching tools for them on color theory and that kind of stuff. They're quite versed, especially Jude, on the bases that we have, and he can tell you what you can use for socks, sweaters, and so on. Abigail, not so much. So let's see here. I made a whole bunch of notes. Oh, sorry, my dog just came in here. The kids have sold some of the yarn online and at fiber festivals, and they absolutely love it. They love telling people how they do it. They do a lot of solar dyeing in the summer, and then they do kettle dyeing, and I think that's about it for right now. The kids do get 100% of the proceeds of the yarn that they dye. And with that, we are teaching them how to save their money. So 50% goes into their educational fund, and the other 50% goes into a bank account. And then they get to spend it on things in the future, or if they would like to buy, sometimes Jude likes to dye sock blanks. And if I don't have them, then we go and purchase them from another dyer, and he gets to see, how much profit he gets to make, and we work out everything like that. So with that being said, we have Abigail right now, and Jude was in Hawaii, so we flew Abby out to spend some time with us, and she's excited. She has never been to the Edmonton Fiber Frolic, so she is going to attend on Saturday, and she dyed up some DK sock sets. So these will be available at a discounted price, and Abby will be there. She did a pretty good job. So this is she's got 2 colorways this time. The other one is a Christmas one. It's not quite dry, so I don't have it with me. But she's super excited. And if you talk to her, be prepared for her to chat your ear off. So I will get into some of the collaborations that we have for this show. Oh, okay, come on. They just want to pop in and say hi to everybody. Come here, Abby. Yeah, you can. Come on. There you go. Say hello.
Hi.
So this is our granddaughter, Abigail. And like I told you, this is the yarn that she dyed. Are you going to see everybody at the Edmonton Fiber Frolic on Saturday? Yeah? Okay, you go with Grandpa. And there's Colin. All right, so I'd like to get into a few of the collaborations that we will have available at the Fiber Frolic. We love collaborating with other makers, and we love promoting them and so on. So the first one is Sarah Kelly of Gray Owl Knits. She surprised me with this pattern. It's called the Fairy Glen Mittens. So, and they're a colorwork mitten with a fairy on it. And she used these two colorways here. So, and these are on a fingering base, 75-25, and it's a high twist 2-ply. So we will have those kits available in our booth. And then another person that we have collaborated a few times with is Anna of the Bluebird Box. And I just have a picture. I don't actually have the sweater. Abigail didn't bring it with her. It's the sun shower pullover. And she actually just released a adult size a little while ago. So we will have the sweater yoke sets, and we'll have the original set also that Anna used to design this sweater. So wonderful designer. We just love working with her. And then this is another collaboration. Now, Dana Ray lives in Manitoba. She is a wonderful sock designer, like just wonderful. These are the plaid blanket socks. So we will have the pattern and the kits. And she has done, we have 3 different samples. And these are all done, it is not colorwork, it's actually slip stitches. So it makes it very interesting. So that's one sample of it. And then she did it in our, it's hard to see, but our buffalo plaid colorway. And this is the most popular set, the buffalo plaid one. All these makers you can find on Instagram. And then, of course, we are known for our gnome sets. This year we have Adventures in Gnome. So each month we do a gnome set and you get a little goodie with it, either a charm or something for the gnome to hold. And then we recommend 2 to 3 patterns, and a lot of them are Sarah from Imagine Landscapes. So this is one of them, and this is the little guy. This was for our March gnome set here, and he came with a, because it's St. Patrick's Day, a little beer mug. So we actually will have a whole section of gnomes with gnome kits, gnomes, bags. Unfortunately, we won't have any of Sarah's patterns, but everybody knows where to find her. This is our December one. It comes with a little snowflake. I'm trying to get it knit up for the Frolic, but it's not going very well with Abigail here. And then we will have a whole bunch of gnome bags. About 80% of our fabric we have custom printed, and about 50% of it is custom designed. So myself and Colin have both done some designing, but then we have 3 designers on board that we commission. And we're always looking for new designers for this kind of stuff. So, and lastly, in the gnome series, this is a pre-order in our website, but I have made up a few of these for the Edmonton Fiber Frolic, and it's our Christmas Eve cast on. It's our 3rd annual, and it comes with a mini snap set, and then a Progress Keeper by Whimsy and Sassy Charms. She does them for us every year, and then a custom printed lifestyle bag, and there's a few little treats in there also. So those are very limited for the Frolic. And then, what else do we have? I'll show this because River City Yarns absolutely loves this colorway. This is our Zebra Effect yarn, and this is one of Colin's black light reactive yarns. So under black light, the whole sock glows. So it's good for rock and roll if you're going to a nightclub, roller skating, which is coming back. And here it is in the skein. So a little bit back there. So we have quite a bit of this and a whole bunch of new colorways coming to the Edmonton Fiber Frolic in our Zebra Effect yarn. And then some, because we're so close to Christmas, I am a Christmas nut. So I am going to bring one of my trees. And I've been making these for well over a decade. So the little knitted ornaments, now they're very hard to see on here. So those I've been making for about just over a decade. The crochet ones I've been doing for about 5 years. Now, I don't crochet myself. So my mother-in-law crochets the little granny squares for me, and my father-in-law makes the little crochet hook, and then I put them together because we had a huge request for people wanting these ornaments that crochet. So we will have those on our tree at the Frolic. And then the other special thing we're launching at this Frolic is our Friendship Mini Kit. So if you've been to a show before and you've seen our samples, they're all these little mini sweaters. We have them for every colorway and they're attached to where they are. Well, people been asking me for years to write up the pattern. Well, I finally did. So in these little kits, you will get 4 micro minis and then the pattern, and you'll get the 4 little metal hangers, and you'll also get it's a metal flexible line with little clips, so you can make your own little sweater garland. So these are launching at the Frolic, and well, we have quite a few of them, so that's good. And we have had lots of requests. I put a shout out on Instagram today for what people would like to see. And people would like to see the Cozy Up Mystery Knit Along. I believe it's the 6th year. The original pattern for 2023 is 1 full skein and 10 minis. Those sets already sold out. Sarah of Cozy Up Knits on their latest podcast said she had started a 3 skein shawl, which is equivalent to that. And she was using some of our yarn. So some people wanted to see this live. So this is the set here that Sarah's using. It's available on our website and we will bring some to the Frolic. So these 2 colorways are out of our Antique Lace series. And then this is just the concrete, which is in our grayscale series. So you can see those. So it's a speckled and then 2 tonals. And it should be absolutely lovely. I have done their mystery knit along every year and I've always enjoyed it. And something else that people have asked to see up close is Holly was kind enough to give me permission to print some fabric for the Edmonton Fiber Frolic of a design that Dan from Curious, she designed, and I made some bags. So we had a pre-order that was very popular. Lots got sent out of that, people that couldn't make it to the show but wanted something because they've been before and will be back again. So this is the fabric here. It's lovely. So this is our lifestyle bag, and we will have some this size for sale, and then we have the medium wire frame, and we have the large wire frame and the tote bags. But we would also like to, we've got a promo going on. If you spend $140 in our shop, you get one of the lifestyle bags for free. as a souvenir. So until supplies are done. All right. And then the other thing people asked for is they wanted to see our new series called Tattooed Blossom. This launched at Knit City and is being highly popular. We had a Nancy Wheeler develop a sock pattern for us with one of the tonals in the series, and she did a wonderful job. So we will have these patterns here, and I do have a sample of the sock, and I'm hoping, oh yeah, you can't really see. There is a little bit of a cable detail down here on both sides of the sock. So, and we'll have the yarn and the pattern at the Frolic. So the series was inspired by this fabric. Oops, sorry about that. So we do have lots of bags, lots of different styles. And then I will show you that the little sweaters that I held up, these are the whole series knit up. Can't really see those very well. But it is I can't hold all of them. I was going to get Colin to do this, but he decided to walk the dog. So there's 6 colors in this series, and we will have it on Lush Fingering, Squishy DK, and Worsted Weight. I've just knit up a worsted weight hat in one of the colorways, and I absolutely love it. So the next thing people asked us to show was, I bought some like bandanas from Angela of Neat Knit Yarns at Prairie Fiber Fest, and she ice dyed them. So we do some eco dyeing in the summertime, but we didn't have time this summer because we had our grandkids for a lot of the summer. So I asked Angela if I purchased some of those, was I okay to make bags? And she said yes. So this is one of the bags that I made out of Angela's bandana. So I have 4 of Angela's, and they're all completely different. So, and this is the extra large wireframe bag, and these ones have the seatbelt webbing handles, so it's a lot more comfortable for your hands. I'm excited about these. I think they turned out so well. And then the other person that we purchased from was the General Bean, Jamie. She did some eco dyeing, and I just adore this bag. So, and this one has a natural cork bottom on it, but they just turned out beautiful. So just absolutely beautiful. So we'll have these also in our booth, and you should check out both the vendors because I know they've been busy dyeing up those bandanas and silk scarves for you guys. Oh, let's see. Okay, so then other people asked us to show the rest of the Buffalo Plaid series. So our initial one was the regular Buffalo Plaid that everybody knows. And then our friend Carly of Northwoods Knit Co. She does a lot of pattern designing for us. She wanted something that was like a camouflage. So she asked Colin to do a green color. And we had to add the pink and the orange for the camouflage for hunting. So this one has been very popular, especially for hats. So, and then we did one called Hers, and we did a blue one called Him, which unfortunately I don't have any. They're all in the dryer right now, and they knit up the same, but it gives everybody a choice on what color they would like to have. And you will see at the Edmonton Fiber Frolic, our display, we also have matching bags for all of our colors. And the last thing in our Buffalo Plaid series is we did gift boxes this year. So it comes in a nice Buffalo Plaid gift box. And I'll just open it quickly here. So you get a lifestyle bag. You get Buffalo Plaid needle stoppers. And these are hot right now. Lots of people are enjoying those. You get 3 skeins of the main skein on Squishy DK, and then you get 3 50-gram skeins of the coordinating colors. So that's something else that we'll have at the Edmonton Frolic. We also have those available on our website, and they'll only be available until January 1st. All right, I'm just looking at my phone here because I'm getting messages. So people want to see some of our new bag styles that we have. So I only have a couple of them here because the rest are already up in Edmonton. We dropped them off at my sister's already. So this is called the Knitter's Tote. So this is a small one. It's a noodle head pattern and she is a Canadian designer who I absolutely love. So it has a zippered pocket, a slip pocket, and then these are leather handles. We have some that come with vegan handles also. And then it has a drawstring fold down. And on the inside, you have, I mean, you can't see it very well in the small one, you have slip pockets on the inside. So these come in small and large. And then we have one of our new bags. It's about, oh, I would say just under a year old. This is the Envy Everyday Crossbody. So you can use it as a crossbody or a regular purse. The handles are leather on the majority of them. I just find that it looks nicer. So they have a magnetic snap, and on the back, there's 2 slip pockets for like your cell phone or whatever. And on the inside, there is slip pockets. The vinyl that I use for these bags is called Mora Vinyl, and it's actually from a Canadian wholesaler. It's soft like leather. It's like butter. And this one features one of our kilts. So I upcycle kilts and make them into bags. So I have a lady here in Calgary. When I get the kilts, I unpick all the pleats and I send them to her for cleaning, and she sends them back to me, and then I make them into bags. The kilts that we are sourced from all over the world. A lot of them come with lovely stories, and if that's the case, when I get the kilt, I make a copy of the story with the permission of the owner, and I slip it into the bag so you know where your kilt has been and that kind of thing. So my mom sources a lot of them. She winters in France, and believe it or not, they go to the UK first and then to France. She gets a majority of them in France. So there's a lot of stories behind them, and it makes them fun. Plus, people love the upcycle. And how I came about that is I inherited my grandmother's kilt, and it's not something that I would ever wear, but I knew everybody in the family wanted that, like the ladies. So with my mom's permission, I cut it up and made everybody bags so they would have my grandma close to them. So anyways, so that's about it, all I have to show. Yeah, if there's any questions or anything.
Can you send the pink bag to me?
Oh,
That's the only question I have. They are gorgeous. I so wish that I could see these items up close and personal. Holly, please take all the pictures for me so I can just ooh and ah here in New York. I loved it. Thank you so much for being with us. My goodness, I really do want that pink bag. I'm gonna have to go on your website or something. I don't know. Have to figure it out.
you just send me a message, and I can't wait to shop at some of the vendors. I've been seeing some of the ice dyed and eco dyed stuff, and the one vendor last night that was showing, I was like the fat quarters. I was like, oh man.
I'm telling you, you're gonna make money and then you're just gonna spend it.
Yeah, I love I love some of the stuff that people are doing, and I see it, and it just needs to either be made into bags or pillowcases or pillows or, that kind of thing. So I'm very excited to see what everybody is bringing. That's for sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kim. I don't see any comments. Like Sydney and I have been taking turns finding like the patterns that you've mentioned. So that people could have the patterns and like plan ahead for shopping when they get to the Fiber Frolic, or and we've got like links to like the Buffalo Plaid set and your Christmas cast on and stuff. So those are all in the chat for everyone. And I think Susanna has the French and Scots were allied against the English. So that's probably why you found a lot of kilts in France. There you go. That's what Susanna says. So
thank you, Susanna. Yeah, all the patterns that I did show, we will have hard copies in our booth also.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, thank you so much. And obviously, yeah, all of you guys that are on here, if you're planning to come to the Fiber Frolic, you'll see Kim and Colin there. And otherwise, you've got links to shop online. And obviously, people can shop online, order ahead, and just do pickup at the Frolic, right?
Yes, they can. We have a lot. We actually are doing also a drop-off point for the people that can't make it to the expo, like because they're working and that kind of stuff. So we've got 2 drop-off points also.
Okay, awesome. Okay,
cool. Awesome. Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Okay, bye.
Bye.
All right. And our next guest is also Kim. I'm very excited to have you here, Kim. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
So Kim, for those of you who don't know, Kim Worker is joining us from Digits and Threads 910 Publications or Publishing. So 910 Publishing publishes Digits and Threads magazine, online magazine, right?
Right.
Okay. So, but 910 Publishing publishes a lot more than just Digits and Threads. You guys have several books in the works and some that have already come out.
Yes. So 910 Publications is our publishing company. Digits and Threads online magazine was the first thing that we published. We launched with it immediately because we could have instant gratification online. My business partner is Kate Atherley, who you may know of. She is a renowned knitting designer and instructor. And so we are a pandemic business. We went into business together in the spring of 2020. And yes, so Digits and Threads is at digitsandthreads.ca. And we publish about Canadian fiber and textile arts exclusively. All of our contributors are Canadian. And our idea about this was we don't hear enough Canadian stories. Almost the entire craft publishing business is in the US. And while there are occasional Canadians who publish in those publications, I did for a very long time, for example, there wasn't a publication that was dedicated to our own stories here, and there's so much going on in Canada. So that's what Digits and Threads is about. We publish on a rolling basis. We don't have issues. So about 3 times a month, we publish new articles and patterns. It's a membership model. We're really building a community. Earlier this evening, for example, we had our monthly Zoom with our studio members, which is a highlight of the month. It's lovely. There were about 40 people from across Canada and a few outside of Canada. We have a guest speaker and we talk about things. We have show and tell. It's super fun. So the books that we're working on is a whole other story because books take forever to make. And so we have a few things, and I will be at the Frolic this weekend. I'm very excited to both be speaking and teaching. And we're going to have a table in the plein air table area. And I will have a few of our things. So I have a few things here with me. We do have a book out, and it is by Kate, and it's called Custom Fit Hats. If you're familiar with Kate's work, you know that she is a big lover of math and making math accessible even to knitters who hate math and think that it's going to break their brain. Custom Fit Hats is kind of like the last hat pattern you will ever need, because Kate just doesn't tell you how to make a particular hat. Kate tells you how to make any style of hat for any head size using any weight of yarn at any gauge. So it's, and she has you do this by making a hat from a top down. Now I'm a crocheter and that makes a ton of sense to me because most crocheters make hats from the top down, but in knitting, usually you start at the brim and you move up. But starting from the top down enables you to make the crown of the hat, use that as your gauge swatch, including, and even I did this and I was very skeptical, but like you soak that sucker, you let it dry and you use it, like you block it as your gauge swatch, and then that informs the rest of the numbers for your hat. That's how you can do any gauge, any weight, anything. So we'll have that book at the Frolic. We also started experimenting when we knew we were going into print books, which is it's quite a journey doing that right now. I don't know if you know, there's a paper shortage. There's been all kinds of supply chain disruptions. It's like cost of paper is skyrocketed. We started experimenting with using some of the magazine content that we published and making physical goods from them. So by far the most popular thing we have published so far is this 16-page sock mending guide. It's awesome. Holly Yo, who is a Vancouver designer and instructor, made step-by-step tutorials for how to do 3 different types of sock mending. And so we printed them up in these booklets. They're $9, so it's a nice, easy thing to kind of toss in your bag at the end of the day, but also way easier to follow than following the tutorials online. You don't want your phone keeps turning off and all this kind of stuff, so we printed it. We also printed the Willow cardigan, which is a crochet pattern. I was wearing the sweater earlier today and I've taken it off. I made one. I love it. It's amazing. It's made in Briggs and Little Sport yarn, which is amazing for crochet. Because if we get nerdy for a second here, a lot of crocheters find sometimes that some commercial yarns split all the time. And that's because commercial yarns are designed for knitters, and crochet twists the yarn subtly in the opposite direction from the way knitting twists yarn. But a singles yarn, which is an unplied yarn, just a single strand of yarn that doesn't have any plies, is spun the opposite way from a plied yarn. And so when you crochet this yarn, it reinforces the twist of the yarn. And the sweater is just amazing. I love it. We also have printed up, this is a much bigger booklet. It's called the Bespoke Pattern. It's also by Holly Yo. And it is a deliberately gender inclusive design that's also size inclusive. And the reason it's such a long pattern is because it's kind of a choose your own adventure. So all within it's one of those patterns you have to highlight before you even start for your size, and also for whether you're making for broad or narrow shoulders and things like that. But it's like a master class in knitting patterns. It's a beautiful cabled cardigan. And then I'll have information about our books that are forthcoming. So the first is by Anna Hunter, who I know will be at the Fiber Frolic this weekend. She is with Longway Homestead. She is a sheep farmer and mill operator in Manitoba. And she has written a book that is now in design and layout. The book is expected in March. And her book is called Shepard and Land. This is one of the little postcards that I will have with me at the Fiber Frolic. But she and her best friend, who is also a sheep farmer, who lives down the road from Anna, she's a professional photographer. Anna and Christelle traveled from coast to coast across Canada, from the BC coast to the Maritimes, and they interviewed other small-scale fiber farmers who are passionate about the breed-specific wool they raise. So this book is, it's like part sort of beautiful photographs of sheep and farms across Canada, part deep dive into why breed-specific wool is important for genetic diversity, for ensuring that sheep are well suited to the climate they're being raised in, and all kinds of other things. It's my distinct pleasure. I love my job. I've read the book 3 times already in close detail. I know so much more now than I did. But it's also about what qualities the different kinds of wool have. So it's a neat book if you're interested in where the materials come from that you use. And it's also written by an author who is passionate about reinvigorating the wool industry here in Canada. There used to be a lot of mills here. There used to be a thriving textile industry here, and it hasn't been for many decades. And so Anna, in addition to raising her sheep and running her mill and teaching and writing a book, is also working really hard with other sheep farmers and just industry-wide to reestablish the infrastructure we need in Canada, both within different regions of the country and nationally, so that we can process our wool here. So many sheep are raised in Canada, but they're raised for meat, and their wool is treated like a disposable byproduct. So the farmers have to shear the sheep because that's part of taking care of sheep, but then they compost the wool, they throw it in the garbage. And so there's a lot of wool in Canada that with not that much effort could be raised to be really high quality wool if we have the milling infrastructure and all of that kind of stuff. So anyway, I could get very nerdy about wool. Definitely stop by Longway Homestead. Anna's wool is gorgeous and amazing, and she'll be there all weekend. And then just today, we met our goal in the Kickstarter that we're running to fund the production of a book called Gathering Color, which is by Caitlin French. Caitlin, thank you, Sydney. Caitlin is a Vancouver-based fine artist who works with natural pigments. She sources pigments from dirt and rocks and plants, and then she processes it and makes it into paint or ink or dyes for use on paper and textiles. Her book is going to be about her art practice, but it's also going to be really hands-on and how-to. She's going to teach you how to harvest and forage pigments responsibly from wherever you live. And then how to make ink and paint and dyes and what to do with them once you make them. So it's going to be this magnificent book. It's also going to be beautiful. And as of today, it is 100% going to be made. That Kickstarter is still ongoing for another 9 days. There are some really cool rewards on it. But this is how we start up a publishing company with just 2 people during a pandemic, is we do it in community. That was a very long answer to your very, very simple question.
I love it so much.
I was like, what am I going to talk about? I don't know. Or I'll just talk about everything.
So perfect. I was going to be like, I didn't even introduce her to Davida. But well, I'm not going to interrupt her because she's got such a good flow going.
No introductions needed. Me and Kim are good friends already. Doesn't even matter. I love it. That was just so insightful. And, just hearing you talk about Anna, I had the pleasure of meeting her and listening to her. And she just opened me up to the whole wool situation, and I just learned so much just from having that conversation with her. So I know her book is going to be incredible. So congratulations to you all for starting this business during a pandemic and the Kickstarter and just all the things. I'm excited for you guys.
Thank you.
This is good stuff. I am a crocheter too. So when you were talking about the yarn and the splitting, I'm like, yeah, child, it's just always splitting. What's the problem here? So this is really good information to know, things to think about. And like you said, really thinking about the tools that you're using. So this is good stuff. Good stuff. Y'all go to her booth and check out all the things.
Well, and not just to her booth, but Kim is doing a keynote presentation first thing Saturday morning.
Wow.
And then she is doing a workshop on the same topic Sunday morning. And I was just completely fascinated with Kim's topic and was like, please come to the Fiber Frolic. I knew about Kim through Digits and Threads in connection with Kate Atherley. But then when I saw this topic, which she's got a poster behind her on the wall about this topic, I was like, oh my gosh, like resurrect this, pull it out of the mothballs. You have got to talk about this. So please tell us about Make It Mighty Ugly.
That's amazing. Also, it's totally what I'm doing is like taking it out of the mothballs. And I was so delighted when I got your email inviting me to do this, because this is my baby, this project. It says a lot about me because it's about making ugly things on purpose. So this is a big version, or it's actually a much smaller version of the poster that's behind me. But I wrote a book about it, which is bananas. But before I wrote the book about it, I started this project called Mighty Ugly, which is about making ugly things on purpose. And this came out of a lot of the work that I had done. And I'll give a more fleshed out, probably more, hopefully more articulate summary of this during my keynote on Saturday morning. But I worked in crafts for a long time, and I worked specifically in crochet. I was a magazine editor. I wrote books about crochet, and I was constantly stressed out about teaching crochet. It drove my boss at Interweave insane that I was like, no, I don't want to teach crochet, because I was always stressed out about it. Because in a group of 10 or 15 people, there was always one person who would sit through the beginner class and say, I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm terrible at it. It's not working. My hands don't work right. I'm terrible. And it stressed me out, because take the risk, take a breath, make the stitches. You're not even ruining anything. It's not even like painting, where you have to convince yourself to paint over something to reuse it. It's yarn. You pull it out. It's not ruined. You can use it again almost infinitely. Like, there's such low risk. And I learned through that whole experience how kind of different I am. Like, that's okay. It's okay. Like, I learned a lot about myself, but I also became convinced that adults and children are very different in one particular way. And that is that children have no fear about making stuff. They don't even think about whether what they make is terrible or good or beautiful or terrible. They just do it, and they're proud of it almost all the time, especially when they're really young. Because we learn right quick that we need to be self-conscious about stuff. But like, I'm talking 4 and 5-year-olds. They think that they make a masterpiece every time. And we look at them and we say, yeah, you did. That's amazing. We're going to hang it up. We're going to praise you. We're going to ask what you're going to make next time. We're going to buy you paint, and we're going to encourage this in you. And by the time we become adults, we think we're terrible at it. We think that if we even try, what we're going to learn is that we're no good, that we're going to fail. Failing feels terrible. It probably means we're kind of worthless in other ways. It probably means we're not deserving of love. Like, I mean, all kinds of terrible things. And so the more I thought about it, the more my weirdo brain went to, well, that means we need to fail a lot more, and we need to celebrate it a lot more. And so I started doing this project called Mighty Ugly, where the one rule, there's 2 rules. You have to make a creature, because there has to be some constraint, and it has to be deliberately ugly. You have to go out of your way and try so hard to make it ugly, kind of in the ways that we always try to make things perfect or cute or beautiful or expertly. We don't give ourselves a lot of grace to be beginners. We don't give ourselves a lot of grace to make the mistakes that are inevitable when we learn something new or try something new, or maybe get distracted by life while we're doing our hobby, and we get stressed out and we lose our spot and we don't know where we were, all of those kinds of things. And so we make something ugly. We take like 20 minutes, doesn't take much longer. And we use trash. We use scraps. We use things that aren't sticky that we would otherwise throw away. We use stuff from the recycling bin. So if you're going to come to my workshop on Sunday morning, please bring stuff from home, because I can't travel with a whole trash bag from Vancouver on the plane. I don't think Air Canada is going to really love me very much, or the people sitting with me as I'm like shoving a sticky garbage bag up into the overhead bin. But it doesn't matter, because you can make something ugly with anything. And the process, it gets us out of our heads a little bit, and we do a show and tell in the end. And so what I've learned, like the workshop that I have been doing on hiatus for a couple of years, but since 2010 hasn't changed, because it kind of works. And even the folks, like the perfectionists in the room, who were the ones in my crochet classes who were like, can't do it, double crochet, confounding, doesn't make any sense to me. I'm all thumbs. I'm just going to stick to my knitting. I don't know why I even came here. This was a horrible mistake. Making something ugly, there's no skill involved. Like, the worst thing somebody can say to you is, I think that's kind of cute. So it turns failure upside down. What are you going to do when you fail to make something ugly? You got something beautiful. Like, you're not going to go home and be like, oh, I'm terrible, because you accidentally made something beautiful. but it's an invitation to look at our creative process in a different light, to hopefully cut ourselves a break, to enable us to be really conscious about things that we aren't conscious about the rest of the time when we're buying yarn, when we're spending a lot of money on materials to do something. We take on this pressure that we have to make something perfect with it, that we have to, if it doesn't come out right, if it doesn't fit right, if it doesn't look the way it does in the photograph, all of those things, we put so much pressure on ourselves. But if we take a deep breath and we discover what our experience is as we make something, then we can start to be more deliberate about making decisions that make us happy instead of make us stressed out, that let us forgive ourselves and embrace mistakes because it means we're learning. I'll tell you what too, I'm going to surprise people that you guys only know, but I'm going to talk a little bit about roller skating in my keynote, because I have discovered as a middle-aged lady that roller skaters have got it right. Roller skating is like Mighty Ugly, but physical activity. It's the greatest thing ever. First class ever. We clap every time somebody falls on their butt. I love it because it means we're learning. And all of crafting should be more like roller skating. And almost certainly, with some exceptions, you're not going to end up in the emergency room. So that's my
That philosophy is so head on and so right. As a mom, when your kids bring home those, I mean, you're just like, but what? No, mommy, turn it the other way. And I'm like, okay, but I still can't. Oh, it's just wonderful. We're going to put this on the refrigerator for the whole world to see. But as adults, when we try to learn something new and we fail at it, it's like the world's coming to an end. I'm just going to give up. And it's just so interesting how that mentality develops, and how we have to work to cast it away. You know what I mean? Like, I think that is just so key. And I think it's going to be a great keynote. Like I said, I mean, I'm just thinking about all the ugly things that I can make because I just want to make it ugly. Like, I want to make something ugly, but it can be so ugly that, like you said, you look at it and be like, you know what, this is kind of cute. It has character. I think about the pottery wheel and how people make things and like it's all lopsided and a mess, but somebody might take that off of the wheel, put it in the stove thing, and then it comes out, you glaze it and do all this amazing stuff to it, and then they want to put it in a museum and like it's worth millions. So yeah. It's all about perspective. So that's cool. Really cool.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think when I was starting to crochet, I think that's part of why I kept going, because there was something about crocheting that I was like, it didn't matter how ugly it was. I was like, whatever. I'm just gonna, like, my first blanket that I made for my mother-in-law was, it was supposed to be, a square. No, it wasn't. It was like, I gave it to her anyway. I was like, whatever. I kept sending my husband to the store to buy more yarn because I was like, well, I need more because it kept growing. Like, whatever, right? I was like, I'm having fun crocheting and I'm giving it to her. It's going to be warm, right?
100%.
But I love, like, it's so true. You have to be able and willing to go with that process of letting it be ugly to start. And I see it in my students when I'm teaching crocheting. I see that the students that are able to, like, oh, whatever, I'm gonna make it ugly first. They make ugly things and they bring them to class and they're like, look, I made this and it's totally ugly, but I'm gonna, like, they're better crocheters at the end of class versus the students that they just get stuck on, like, man, this chain, I can't make a pretty chain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they never get past the chain.
Yep. I mean, I loved teaching online for that reason, because I didn't have anyone in the room with me. And I taught, right? So I taught it Craftsy, and I, like, I did this with my son too, who's not super crafty, but he wanted to learn crochet because I think I told him, like, if you're going to sit in front of the TV, you need to do something with your hands. And I tell my students, like, go home, or if it's online, like, pause the video and, and make a chain at least as tall as you are, and don't stop until you hate me. Like, that's it. Like, just don't stop until you hate me. When you're sitting there going like, God, this stupid instructor, I don't know what I'm doing. Then you're going to look down. You're going to be like, oh, way at the beginning of my chain, all my stitches are too tight. Everything is terrible. And by the time I'm so bored, I want to die. Well, my chain is relaxed and better. And then I tell them to rip it out, wind the yarn up, because like, that's it. You're gonna feel so passionate about this that you hate me. Then I'm gonna teach you it's not precious. And we're gonna rip it out and start again. And it's like, oh, okay, we're just gonna get it over with to begin with. Because if you start things out and it's like, and then it's dangerous if you're good at it, if it makes sense to you right away, then you've got a whole swatch going. You decide you're gonna make a scarf, and then you're gonna go make something, and it's gonna be more challenging. And you're gonna say, well, I can't rip it out. I don't know how to rip something out. I've never done it before. So you just have to take it right out in the beginning.
That. Oh my goodness. I'm serious. Like, it just makes so much sense. And like you said before, that's the thing I love about crochet is you can just rip it out. Just rip it out and start over. What's the worst that can happen? Like, just rip it out and start over. And as you do it, as you rip things out, you understand, oh, okay, I could have done this differently, or maybe I could have put 2 stitches here instead of 1, or maybe I should try a different stitch. Like, it's so liberating. So rip it out, people. Just frog it. Just frog it.
That's right. No yarn is wasted when you rip it out.
Just rip it out. Just frog it.
Yeah.
My kind of conversation, Dan.
I loved, there's this one story you told me when we were talking that is stuck in my head, is like at the end of the workshop, you have people come up and tell the story of their little creature that they've made. And I just remember this one you told me about, like, they make something that it ends up being kind of cute, and they're like, well, he's kind of cute, but he's a serial killer.
I've heard it all. I've heard all kinds of things. The serial killer, yeah, it's kind of cute, but whenever it touches something, they die. Or like there's been like the toxic ooze. And so it's really neat to see sort of like you spend this time focused on the physical act and on this object that you're making. And in the end, the story is a lot about it. Like it becomes this whole kind of thing. And the ones that really are ugly have very different kinds of stories. They're sad a lot of the time, or they're lonely, or they've been rejected. You know, they live under a bridge instead of having a comfy and warm home. You know, like there's a story there that's sad. And a lot of that story often has to do with other people letting the person down, or the creature, not a person, like, right? Whereas the ones that end up sort of cuter or pretty, symmetrical, in coordinating colors and things like that, they're the ones who are like vicious, mean, harmful people. And so it's this, like, part of why I'm so fascinated by this all the time is because I get to hear every single story that people tell, and I get to see these different ways that people fill in those blanks. And in the end, you love those ugly creatures. You want to be the one who reaches out a hand and helps them. Whereas the other ones, you're like, you know, you're not beautiful on the inside, so who cares what you look like on the outside? Like, you're on your own, bud. And so it's just, it becomes such an interesting reflection of sort of the human condition, if I'm going to be super dumb about it. But like, there's just, so it's a neat workshop, and and it can be really emotional. Sometimes people really feel big feelings because they know that they tend to be a perfectionist and they're forcing themselves to go through it. There's social pressure in a workshop experience. Like I wrote the book, and yeah, you can go and you can make Mighty Ugly at home and you can do this whole kind of thing. But there's something about doing it in a group of people where there's one person in there who's having the time of their lives. Always at least one person. This is the greatest, most freeing thing I've ever done. They're talking loud, they're walking all over the place. And there's a person who is quiet because they are struggling. And then in the end, when we all share, the boisterous person is like, this is Bob. Bob's a jerk. Isn't he ugly? And the person who is quiet the whole time tells a tale, and it can be heavy. And then everybody's there and everybody is like, you know, and everybody's there to support that person. And then they go, you know, and like everybody decamps afterwards. And I get emails from people who are like, my little ugly dude is sitting on my computer as a reminder to me. And I love it. So I hope to see you staring right into the camera on Sunday morning. We'll do Mighty Ugly together out of trash and whatever it is I can shove into my suitcase around all the other stuff that I'm bringing. And I'll be signing books on, I think, Saturday afternoon. So I'll have some of those in my suitcase too. It's like, what's Kim have in her suitcase? It's gonna come this weekend and you'll find out.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I cannot wait. I love, love, love. Like, this is why I'm so passionate about the Fiber Frolic. Because I love creativity. I love seeing the creativity that people bring to the Fiber Frolic, the stuff people wear, the things vendors bring to their booths, the way vendors put booths together, the workshops that people, you know, like you, that bring the workshops people bring to the Fiber, like everything about the Fiber Frolic is people's creativity. And I just get to like ask people to come and like show their creativity. I freaking love it. And what I love about this is that you're like exploring the root of that. Like, no matter how creative you are, how long you've been creative, how much you've allowed that creativity to blossom in you, there is always something new to explore, and you always start out with the ugly before you make it beautiful. I just, oh, it gives me goosebumps. I love it so much. I'm so excited for you to come, to do your keynote, to do your workshop, to meet with people in the Gathering Threads Lounge. It's going to be awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm so excited too.
Okay, we are 3 minutes past 9 now and 3 minutes past 11 for Deviter. So
This
yeah,
has been
that's
awesome.
Thank
Awesome.
you so much to everyone who has been joining us here on YouTube. I think, okay. I think Crafty Bone says, Devita, you got to do a pair of earrings ugly and see what happens.
I'll see. I'll see about that. I can't promise that one now, but I'll see.
All right. Well, we will see you guys back here again tomorrow evening. Thank you so much, everybody.
Good night.